Okay, Freilich and Chanukah, everyone. Happy Chanukah. I just want to share some thoughts for what we should be thinking of as we're lighting the Chanukah candles, as we're lighting the menorah. As you know, or many of you know, the Gemara doesn't really talk much about Chanukah. We have an entire Masechta Megillah about Purim, but Chanukah is just hidden somewhere in there in Masechet Shabbos, a parak called Bameh Madlikin, very little about Chanukah. But what does it say? It says, My Chanukah, what is Chanukah? Tells a little bit about the story. And then it ends up and it says, L'shana acheres kiva'um va'asa'um yamim tovim b'halel u'b'hodah. It says what happened? They set up Chanukah for future generations to be days of Hallel v'hodah. Hallel meaning we say Hallel, and Hodah thanking Hashem. It doesn't say anywhere in the Gemara about this mitzvah, which we know is the main mitzvah of Chanukah, of lighting candles. But interestingly, the Rambam, who codifies the Gemara and makes it into like actual halachos and mitzvos, he kind of repeats over the Gemara, but he says, "Umipnei zeh hitkinu chachamim shebeoto hador sheyihiyu shmonat hayamim ha'eleh v'chulei yimei simcha v'halel umadlikin bahen hanerot be'erev al pitchei habatim b'chol laila v'laila." He says, what is the mitzvah of Chanukah? He says they set it up for all generations to be days of simcha, of happiness, and halel. Again, saying halel umadlikin bahen hanerot, and you light the candles. So the Rambam clearly says you light the candles, but he doesn't mention what the Gemara mentions, that these are supposed to be days of Hodah, of thankfulness. So which is it? What is the mitzvah of Chanukah? What are we supposed to do? Is it Hallel and Hodah, saying Hallel and thanking Hashem, or is it actually lighting the candles? So interestingly enough, Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach explains that Modim al Hanes b'hadlakat hanero, that when we light the candles, that's our way of thanking Hashem for the nace of Chanukah. In fact, he says that menorah is a very unique mitzvah. Every other mitzvah, you get credit if you just do the mitzvah. You don't have to have the right intentions. You don't have to think about why you're doing it. You just have to do the mitzvah. But he says the mitzvah of Chanukah, you will not get credit for. You have not fulfilled the purpose of lighting the menorah. You don't get credit. You're not yotzei the mitzvah if you don't think about the fact that when you're lighting the menorah, you're actually expressing gratitude to Hashem for the mitzvah of the nace of Chanukah. You don't get any mitzvah if you don't think about that. And the Ramban explains in the end of Parshas Bo that that's actually the purpose of all mitzvos. He says that aside from the fact that when you do a mitzvah, you're listening to Hashem, basically what does every mitzvah say? Every mitzvah says, Hashem, you created me, and I have the ability to do so much. The least I can do for you is do this little mitzvah. It's a small way of thanking Hashem for creating us. He says, Ein kel elyon chafetz betachtonim milvad sheyeda ha'adam v'yoda le'elokav shebaro. What does Hashem want from us? Simply sheyeda ha'adam, we should recognize v'yoda le'elokav and thank Hashem for creating us. So every mitzvah in general is an expression of gratitude, but we don't have to actually think about that when we do the mitzvah. But on Chanukah, we actively have to think for 8 days a year about how thankful we are to Hashem. So how do we do that? Basically, we have to train ourselves to constantly be thankful to Hashem. That has to be our default position. Not every moment of the day, oh Hashem, why didn't this happen that way? What's going on? I wish I could have this, I wish I could have that. But no, we have to train ourselves that our gratitude is the attitude in which we go through life. Tov lahodos Lashem, we say, right? The only thing that's good is actually thanking Hashem. And one way that we can do this is, Rav Pinkus points out that Chanukah is the only yontif that's on a weekday, right? Every other, Purim, but Chanukah is the only yontif that's not like a yom that's 8 days that never fall out. You know, they're just weekdays, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because it's showing us that we can elevate every single day, every weekday, we can just take it. It doesn't have to have an intrinsic Kedusha to it. It doesn't have to be a Shabbos. It doesn't have to be a day of Kedusha. We can take the regular days of the week and we could just make those special days. So living as a Jew means you take every single thing that Hashem gives you every single day and you realize you get into a pattern of recognizing Hashem in that day and thanking Hashem. You know, like the MTA has their motto, see something, say something. That really has to be our motto. When you see something, you train yourself, say something. You know, I encourage my students to memorize Perek Kuf Chaf in Tehillim of Mizmor LeToda, which is thanking Hashem. And literally, anytime anything good happens to me, I'm driving down the street and I happen to find a parking spot, immediately I say Mizmor LeToda. Just train yourself that should be your attitude. And that's who we are as Jews, right? Who are the heroes of Chanukah? Yehuda HaMaccabi. Yehuda comes from the same language of Lahodot, and Yehudit. Also, it's the same language. We are called as Jews Yehudim from that language of Hoda'ah. And Hoda'ah doesn't just mean to think, it also means to admit that in order to have this attitude of being thankful to Hashem, we have to train ourselves to constantly admit that everything that happens to us comes from Hashem and to constantly thank Him. And we have to get into that pattern in life. My kids, a few of them, actually set on their phones every night at 7:45 p.m. their alarm starts ringing. And I'm like, what is that? Why is your phone ringing? They set themselves thank you Hashem alarms. So that every single night, it reminds them, okay, now I'm going to stop and I'm going to think, okay, why am I going to thank Hashem? What do I have to be thankful about today? Last night, I was sitting eating supper and I have 8-year-old twins. One of them runs in and she says, Ima, thank you so much for driving me home from school today. And like 5 minutes later, I hear from the living room the other one, Ima, thank you so much for driving me home from school today. So I was wondering, like, what's going on? I drive them home from school every day. So they bring me in this grid, which has in it different squares, and each square had a different thing that they had to thank somebody for and get that person to sign that they thank them. And that's because it is so important to train ourselves and to train our kids to be thankful for everything. And that's really the message of Chanukah. Be thankful. And you have to think about that when you light the candles, because if not, you're not Yotzei. And you have to be thankful for the everyday things, not just the big things that happen, and train ourselves to constantly be on the lookout for those things that we're to be thankful for so that we can truly fill Chanukah and have it be Yamim of Hallel and Hoda'ah to Hashem. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope now you have something to keep in mind as you light the candles every night of Chanukah, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you.